Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is huge. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel after this. It's below in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe there and hit subscribe here to my super chat. I can't do this without you. Your super chat support is greatly appreciated. The Department of Justice launching grand jury investigation into RUSSIAGATE conspiracy allegations. Okay, so the allegations, they're always going to say it's an allegation. This is a fact. It's not any allegation. The fact is they set up and framed Trump with a dossier purchased by Clinton and the DNC. Clinton and the DNC paid Federal Election Commission fines. Brennan, Comey, Clapper, all of them lied under oath. Clinton included during the Durham probe. The Durham probe annex was released. Declassified testimony, declassified emails, documents. Check that out prior to this one. There is a written memo by John Brennan talking about the fact that they all knew this was a plan by Clinton. Even the Russians knew it was a plan by the DNC and Hillary's campaign to vilify Trump. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. You have Comey, Bolton, Letitia James. You're going to have about probably 20 more plus indictments, including Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, and a whole bunch of other individuals. Hit subscribe. Check this out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is huge.
We start today's show with some big breaking news, and we're going to go straight to Fox News correspondent David Spunt for the details. David.
Well, Will, good to be with you. This is coming out of the Justice Department. Fox News can confirm that Attorney General Pam Bondi today signed an order directing an unnamed U.S. federal prosecutor to take evidence to a grand jury relating to an alleged conspiracy to tie then 2016 candidate Donald Trump to the country of Russia. Now, Fox News reviewed the one-page order just hours ago signed by the Attorney General. A source familiar with the probe confirms this as well, while a DOJ spokesperson declined to comment on this report of an investigation. Fox is told Attorney General Bondi is taking the referrals from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, quote, very seriously. The spokesperson says that Bondi believes there is, quote, clear cause for deep concern, end quote, and a need for the next steps. Now, this move, Will, comes just a couple of weeks after the Director of National Intelligence, you see her right there, Tulsi Gabbard, sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department regarding what she says proves there was a conspiracy to undermine Trump's.
I don't have inside knowledge. It's pure speculation. There are criminal referrals almost certainly for Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, and then Comey and others under conspiracy statutes and possible perjury during the Durham probe investigation, which ended in 2023. That's within the statute of limitations. So there are indictments that you don't have to worry about the statute of limitations because they tie directly to the Durham probe. The Durham probe proved that the Clinton campaign, DNC, and others fabricated intelligence. That was proven by the Durham probe. I should say, not by the Durham probe itself. Not by the Durham probe itself, by the declassified documents from the ODNI and also the Durham probe annex that John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel released. And the annex has the declassified notes, memos, emails, where all of these people are conspiring, literally setting up and framing Trump. And we talked about that in the last segment. You can look it up. The Senate Judiciary, Chuck Grassley and others, they have the Durham probe annex. You can look it up yourself or watch the segment prior to this one.
Candidacy and later his first term in office. Now, to be clear today, there are no charges that have been filed, no indictments. This is incredibly early in the process. What we have here is taking evidence the Justice Department believes it has to a grand jury to secure an eventual indictment or indictments. We don't know exactly where the grand jury will meet. We don't know who will go before the grand jury. And that's by design, because grand juries determine if there's enough evidence to indict, and grand juries are secretive in the American legal system, so it's normal not to know all all of the answers. Again, the DOJ declining on any comment regarding this investigation. But, Will, big news. This was signed by the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, today to take this evidence of an alleged conspiracy to a grand jury with the hope to get an indictment or multiple indictments.
The annex, the Durham probe annex, literally has handwritten notes from John Brennan talking about the fact that they knew Russian intelligence was aware of a plan by Clinton and her campaign to vilify Trump. There were a number of people conspiring within the Durham probe evidence to set up and frame Trump. They have emails, they have handwritten notes, they have text messages. They have the receipts, so it's not like this is not a theory. This is a fact. That's why they paid an FEC fine. The Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee paid a Federal Election Commission fine. Okay, yet Trump was convicted in New York, which is completely absurd because the FEC dropped Trump's case. They fined Clinton and the DNC. But all of the evidence is there, and Clinton will run for president. I'm telling you, have I not been correct on pretty much everything? I've been telling you for years Comey will eventually get indicted. You're going to see Brennan, Clapper, Hillary Clinton, probably 20 plus people associated with the dossier, the CIA under Brennan, the FBI under Comey, and several likely DOJ officials during that time period as well. And then very likely some public relations executives. It's all within the Durham probe.
I see too many.
That is big news, David, and congratulations to you. Excellent reporting on being first on this order signed today by Attorney General Pam Bondi. I understand it is a one-page order, which you have been able to review. Fox News has been able to review. I'm afraid I'm going to ask you some questions that need to be asked, but we won't yet know the answer. So let's start with the one that everyone watching at home is interested in. Who or what names might be the target of this grand jury?
Well, that's a great point. We don't know. We know that Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, has mentioned the names John Brennan, the former CIA director, James Clapper, who had the job before her. But I want to be very clear on the air. We don't know if their names are going before the grand jury. For anybody that has, talked about former President Barack Obama seeing charges, we're told by multiple law enforcement sources that's not going to happen.
I told you that years back. They will never charge President Obama because President Obama is working to help President Trump. You heard it here first. Okay? You can read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Federalist. Go to hagoodman.com. I've been pretty much spot on the past 8-9 years. I've been pretty much spot on, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't been perfect, but my analysis is a lot better. Infinitely better than the mainstream or a whole bunch of other pundits or YouTubers. I'm telling you that President Obama and Donald Trump, President Trump, are friends. You can see the way they spoke at Jimmy Carter's funeral. They are friends. But President Obama does risk criminal liability for setting up and framing Trump, who is part of a club of 47 American men who were presidents. 47 people in world history, in American history, okay? They are closer to each other, Obama and Trump, than Brennan is to Obama or Clinton. Well, first of all, President Obama doesn't even like Hillary Clinton. So that's very likely the case. He takes over the Democratic Party when Clinton is indicted, even though she'll run again for president. But number one, President Obama circumvents any criminal liability from setting up and framing Trump. 18 U.S. Code 371 is the statute. They literally fabricated every single piece of evidence. There was not one piece of evidence linking Trump to Russia. And if some imbecile out there, well, what about this? What about that? Well, what about the Uranium One deal? What about that? So if you want to say, well, there were ties, the people he knew, Trump didn't have any ties to any Russian intelligence officials. None. None. Zero. There was zero collusion. Zero. There probably, in terms of votes, there was zero interference, but they keep saying it was interference. If you want to talk about Manafort, the Democrats have 30 Manaforts in terms of ties to Russia, not in terms of criminal conduct, because Manafort, in many ways, was set up. George Papadopoulos was set up. Carter Page was set up. General Flynn was set up. All of these people were set up. They had zero link to any collusion. Zero. Literally nothing. And now everything's declassified, and we find that out. So President Obama was president when this all started. If he helps President Trump, he, number one, circumvents any criminal liability. Number two, he takes over the Democratic Party, forever. Because the I'm with her crowd will have to deal with an indictment and potential conviction. So anyway, hit subscribe if you're new.
Because of the immunity that he enjoys as a former president because of the Supreme Court decision last year that came to actually benefit current President Trump. So while we don't know the names, Will, we know that those are possible names, and we know the Justice Department is serious enough and believes that it has enough evidence to take this to a grand jury. If I may just add in here, a few weeks ago, the Attorney General announced a strike force to go through some of these documents, and within a couple of weeks, feels that she has enough evidence to go forward to this grand jury. So it directs an unnamed federal prosecutor to take this evidence to a grand jury, but the name of that federal prosecutor not clear at this moment.
Okay, just a couple more quick questions, David.
Sure.
Sorry to push the limits of your knowledge, but I want to make sure that we address all the things that are not only in your report, but in everyone's mind as well. The name, as well, in addition to Clapper and Brennan, that people will be wondering about will be Hillary Clinton. I understand yet we do not yet have those names. We'll be waiting to hear what names are in that referral to a grand jury. The next thing everyone will...
Clinton will likely be indicted for perjury during the John Durham special counsel investigation. And then, because that's within the statute of limitations, the John Durham special counsel ended in 2023. So when I say John Durham just indicted Clinton, that's from the evidence within the Durham probe. And you can see the Durham Annex, Chuck Grassley. You can see it on this channel. You just type in Senate Judiciary. You can get all the information. Then there's the conspiracy statutes that they'll all be indicted under. That'll take 4 or 5 months from now.
Want to know, David, is what are the potential charges?
Well, the potential charges, and I want to use the word potential, would be lying to a federal official, which is a felony to do so. If you lie to an FBI agent or you lie to another federal official, there could be charges involved with there, and I'm told those could be the most likely. That's something that we saw in the John Durham investigation. He was the former special counsel that was appointed by then Attorney General Bill Barr, and those are the types of charges that he used in his cases. He actually lost both times in court, but he did secure a plea deal with a former FBI attorney for falsifying a document. So those seem to be, or that seems to be, when I say those, I should say that because that's just one charge. But that's the charge in talking to sources that people have been eyeing for weeks. But this initial letter signed by the Attorney General that we reviewed does not say anything about specific charges. It just directs an unnamed prosecutor, hey, you have jurisdiction that's out of your normal jurisdiction. You can go anywhere in the United States and you could bring this evidence before a grand jury.
And a grand jury will come back with formal charges, a formal indictment. But a prosecutor, whoever that may be, as you point out, can and should make suggestions to a grand jury on which way they decide the evidence points. Ultimately, they decide whether or not there's probable cause for an indictment. Last question for you, David.
Sure.
The one-page order, which you have reviewed, suggests it is an unnamed prosecutor, but it seemed to open up, and I'm listening to you intently here, it seemed to open up potential jurisdiction to anywhere that seems appropriate to that prosecutor. So I take it this doesn't necessarily mean it would be in Washington, D.C., not necessarily in New York, potentially could be filed charges anywhere in the United States.
Yeah, that's what we're told. We're told that the Attorney General has the ability to confer that ability on any everyday federal prosecutor to give that jurisdiction to sort of widen out for the entire United States. And we're being told that this is not a special prosecutor or a special counsel, as we saw with Jack Smith and John Durham.
That's good because they can't then contest the appointment because a special counsel is tricky. What is going to take place this week is that Comey is likely going to lose his legal battle to toss the case because of the federal prosecutor. So they're saying the federal prosecutor that that President Trump and Pam Bondi appointed was not legally appointed. The problem, however, is that Pam Bondi very likely knows the bureaucracy more than all of these legal scholars. So if it happens that the indictment is tossed, the Comey indictment is tossed, he'll just be indicted again under a number of other statutes. But it's unlikely that it's going to be tossed. And when they lose that, because every single legal scholar is saying Comey is going to toss the case. Every single legal scholar. Every liberal pundit / attorney lawyer on YouTube is saying, Comey's going to win this. It's like, nah, he got discovery, which is normal. You know, the DOJ said he can't be trusted, which is true. But the judge said, no, he's entitled to discovery, which, everybody's entitled to discovery. But the statute, there's 120 days where Pam Bondi and President Trump have the right to appoint a federal prosecutor because the other one wouldn't, couldn't find any illegal activity. That's what's taking place this coming week. We will have a huge live stream when almost certainly the judge says, nah, you know what? Pam Bondi and the government legally appointed this federal prosecutor. Let's just go to trial. That'll be a huge victory for President Trump and Pam Bondi. But anyway, let's continue.
Durham and Robert Hur were told this is just a federal prosecutor that is being given this temporary jurisdiction to take this before a grand jury. But at this point, it's not being referred to as a special counsel.
Just to complete the OCD of my curiosity, David, we've covered who, what, and where. I am compelled to ask you then when. Any sense of timeline on this grand jury?
I'm told that it could be months before anything actually happens as far as seeing any sort of results from the grand jury. It's not clear how long grand juries sit in each different jurisdiction. They're impaneled for different amounts of times. I've covered cases before where one grand jury hears some evidence and they're just getting ready to say, we're going to indict, and then their term and their service is over, so another grand jury comes in. I think that in speaking to the people we spoke to, they want to move quickly on this, but it all depends on what the grand jury wants to do and the amount of evidence. But I'm told that any indictments, I want to be clear, if there are indictments, because grand juries can come back and say we don't think there's enough evidence for indictments, that may take a little while.
Okay, David Spunt, excellent breaking news today.
They have so much evidence, it's unbelievable. They have so much evidence because what took place was they never thought Trump would return. Okay, there was an attempt on Trump's life. Okay? And they never thought that Trump would return. Never. And beautiful Madam Secretary, the best. You just have to enjoy the acting, but also they had every advantage the past 10 years. Every single advantage. She'll still run for president. I'm telling you, have I not been right on everything? Almost everything, ladies and gentlemen. I've been telling you Comey would be indicted forever. Nobody thought that would take place. Hillary Clinton will be indicted. Very likely, it'll go to trial. She'll be convicted, but she'll still run for president. The conviction will take place after she loses the presidency. There's like a 2% chance she wins the presidency, even indicted. 2%. 98% it'll be J.D. Vance. She'll be indicted and she will run for president. I'm telling you. I'm the only person on planet Earth telling you this. She will be indicted and then still run for president. Okay? I'm a hologram from 2016. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you.
Other adversary of ours who's anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? And since Russia is clearly backing Republicans,
how on earth are they backing? How? Why? Because they invaded under Biden? They made the largest invasion in decades, in what, a century, under Biden, during Biden's administration, not Trump. How on earth are they backing Republicans?
why don't we ask China to back us?
I hereby tonight ask China.
That's right.
It was a coup to overthrow a democratically elected government, a coup carried out by the intelligence apparatus of this country, by the deep state, by Hillary Clinton.
By the way, one of the talking points was that Trump asked Russia for help. There's Maddow and Clinton asking China for help. You see how absurd the hysteria was? Trump asked the Russians for help. Well, that's exactly what... It's so absurd. It's like if you were to ask Martians to take over the planet. Or like, whatever, you know what I mean.
And the Democrat Party. The new information that has been revealed by the Director of National Intelligence and by the FBI eliminates any scintilla of doubt about the intention, the premeditation, the planning and orchestration of this conspiracy. It meets all of the criminal elements of a seditious conspiracy against the United States. It meets the criminal elements of an insurrection.
Well, subsequently, under penalty of perjury, while under oath, Hillary Clinton's own campaign manager confirmed that there was such a plan and that Hillary approved it. It is the greatest political scandal that we hopefully will be the last that we'll see in our lifetime.
First, you heard Hillary Clinton pushing Trump-Russia hoax with Rachel Maddow, and then that was Stephen Miller.
By the way, the mentality is she knows she's going to be indicted. She doesn't care. It's 10 years. It's been 10 years. They tried to take Trump's life. I'm not they. One person. Definitely not the Democratic Party. Definitely not anyone, aligned with Democrats. Definitely not. One, madman person. Well, actually two. But definitely they had nothing. It was just them, But Trump, thank God, lived. And there was a firefighter who did not live. God bless his soul. And, there's no investigative journalism. Where are the Pulitzer Prizes at the Washington Post or New York Times trying to find the truth? What happened in Butler, Pennsylvania? Well, there's a radius of less than 100 yards or 150 yards. They wouldn't cover the rooftop. They didn't have drones. They didn't have agents covering the rooftop. A clear line of sight. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And President Trump moved his head. And he lived. And a firefighter lost his life protecting his family. And zero investigative journalism at the Washington Post or New York Times. Zero. I wonder why. Why is that?
And CIA Director John Ratcliffe on newly declassified documents in the Durham Annex indicating Hillary Clinton created Trump-Russia to distract the media away from her own FBI probes that Democrats feared would cause Hillary to lose to Trump in 2016. Joining us now, South Carolina gubernatorial candidate. Congratulations for that, Congresswoman Nancy Mace from House Oversight. Thank you so much for joining us. What's your reaction to this? Hillary Clinton had to change the headlines because the FBI was probing the Clintons' serious conflicts of interest in their own pay-to-play scandals, that the Clintons were selling access to Clinton Foundation donors to have access to Secretary of State Clinton and the Obama State Department. What's your reaction to this?
Well, if this is true, it sounds like Hillary Clinton broke the law and Hillary should be in handcuffs. And I hope that
FBI probes.
So let's listen to that again. Yet another example of a whole lot of law breaking, but see, again, every advantage they had, media, nobody trusts media, government, they've either been fired, they've left, or they're now voted for President Trump or working in President Trump's administration. So what advantages and then you have President Obama, who is almost certainly working with President Trump to indict Clinton, because he gets full control of the Democratic Party and he circumvents any criminal liability. But let's continue. What is Nancy Mace talking about? Let's check it out.
And then that was Stephen Miller and CIA Director John Ratcliffe on newly declassified documents in the Durham Annex indicating Hillary Clinton created Trump Russia to distract the media away from her own FBI probes that Democrats feared would cause Hillary to lose to Trump in 2016. Joining us now, South Carolina gubernatorial candidate, congratulations for that, Congresswoman Nancy Mace from House Oversight. Thank you so much for joining us. What's your reaction to this? Hillary Clinton had to change the headlines because the FBI was probing the Clintons' serious conflicts of interest in their own pay-to-play scandals that the Clintons were selling access to Clinton Foundation donors to have access to Secretary of State Clinton and the Obama State Department. What's your reaction to this?
Well, if this is true, it sounds like Hillary Clinton broke the law and Hillary should be in handcuffs. And I hope that when charges are referred, that this doesn't become another Benghazi, because I am, like every other hardworking American, sick and tired of people, politicians especially, breaking the law, flaunting the Constitution, being a threat to democracy and having no consequences. And we need real consequences here. And I believe in the leadership of the Trump administration.
Yeah, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi is moving on a federal grand jury to hear evidence about this. We don't know who could be targeted with indictments. Again, this is it's premature. We're just in the beginning stages of this. But, you know, Congressman, the details of this are pretty damaging. Hillary was in damage control in 2016. The FBI was investigating the, quote, grift and graft with the Clinton Foundation. That's what the media called it. The AP discovered, listen to this, the AP discovered that more than half of the private individuals who met with Secretary of State Clinton in the first half of her tenure were Clinton Foundation donors. Those 85 donors gave a huge $156 million combined to the Clinton Foundation. Congresswoman, that's more than half of the Clinton Foundation's budget in 2015. And then you had nations like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, giving money to the Clinton Foundation, doing business before the Secretary of State Clinton, and Bill Clinton taking in massive speaking fees paid by entities with interest before the Obama White House.
So the rebuttal from Democrats and media is, oh, it's been looked at. It was never, not even for 1 second, looked at. There were prosecutors in New York that looked at it for like a second. Oh, we couldn't find anything. Same thing they did with that Democratic donor that's now, below the ground in a place that is very, very hot. He gave $20,000 to Hillary Clinton. He gave $20,000 to Chuck Schumer. He gave $50,000 to Bill Richardson. We'll call him EP. EP was, Jeff EP, we'll just call him. That was a Democratic donor. Okay. New York went to bat. Even Vox wrote that the New York Democrats covered for him. They couldn't even find a grand jury for him. But for Trump, in like 2 seconds, he's, indicted, convicted, all, and he still won the presidency. But the Clinton Foundation scandals were never investigated. In fact, the FBI under Comey, that's why McCabe is accused of leaking, because he was given money through intermediaries from the Clintons. But anyway, it's so sordid, and it leads back to the people who are the most influential within the Democratic Party, the Clintons. Once Hillary's indicted, President Obama gets full control of the Democratic Party. And then, like I said, he circumvents legal liability, a criminal liability, which is why he's helping President Trump right now.
Sounds like a lot of pay to play, and we saw this with Joe Biden as vice president. This is the Democrat playbook. And quite frankly, she should be indicted for these things. And this is what transparency looks like. And I hope that we follow the full letter of the law and provide as much transparency and accountability to the American people, because they tried to take Donald Trump out with lies and with hoaxes, and he stood the width of the storm. He withstood it all to become president of the United States. And this was just a way for her to cover up her transgressions and what she was doing, fleecing not just Americans, but fleecing other nations.
33,000
story every outlet in this room should be covering. This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
Florida Congressman Byron Donalds joins me now. Congressman, surely there will be a full-scale investigation of this. That's what you would expect, right?
Absolutely. There needs to be a full-scale investigation. With respect to the Hillary Clinton campaign paying for the Steele dossier and other elements, in the Financial Services Committee, we had a former SEC Commissioner Gary Gensler in committee. And I questioned Mr. Gensler about this very fact, about did he sign off on the checks that paid for the Steele dossier that we now know without any shadow of a doubt was false, a false narrative, concocted materials and evidence for the entire purpose of spying on President Trump's campaign in 2016 and starting this Russia probe, which was, in my view, the real thing that was destroying our democracy. And that's the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, wanting so desperately to defeat Donald Trump that they were using the intelligence community, laundering phony intelligence, and their Hillary Clinton campaign paying for it. And so, yes, it needs to be investigated much more broadly.
I should tell our audience that Fox Business reached out to Hillary Clinton's team for a response to the story. We have not heard back from that team at this point. Congressman, Biden's longtime aide, Mike Donovan, he just testified in the Biden probe. He says Democrats overreacted to the catastrophic debate. Biden was capable of doing the job. And now Axios is reporting that Donovan was promised $8 million if Biden won the election. What is going on here, Congressman?
I mean, first of all, nobody believes Mr. Donlin. The Democrats were concerned. People, listen, the debate was disastrous. I was there. The American people saw it. But don't forget, I think it was 2 weeks before the debate, Joe Biden went and did this now famed fundraiser with Barack Obama and George Clooney, and it is clear they're having to help him off the stage. Apparently last night, he gave some speech last night, and they literally walk him to the podium for him to start.
So if President Trump, God bless Biden, if President Trump had the obvious cognitive issues that Biden had, they would be absolutely ruthless. Jimmy Kimmel, all of these pundits on every single media, late night, Saturday Night Live, they would not stop doing everything possible to insult, mock, denigrate, disparage President Trump. Because they do so anyway, and he didn't have the cognitive. He has better cognitive abilities than a lot of Americans. Not most, but a lot of Americans, okay? And maybe even most. President Trump is sharp as a tack. And President Biden, God bless him, was one fry short of a Happy Meal. And they knew this. They knew this in 2020. That's why President Trump said, how could I have lost? That's why the entire world was wondering how it happened. And of course, if it goes against Democratic Party sensibilities or liberal sensibilities, it's like a complete fiasco. They make it like, a sacred cow. So it's called the big lie. Well, then what is RUSSIAGATE called? That has to be the greatest lie of all time. Because there are concerns as to how somebody who couldn't articulate his thoughts, who had obvious cognitive issues in 2020 and was kicked out, that's the point. If you say that Biden won the most votes ever, why did George Clooney write that op-ed? I think it was in, the New York Times or Washington Post. Why did he write that op-ed? In less than 4 years, Biden was kicked out of his candidacy. He won his primary. How could Democrats kick Biden out of office if he won the most support ever in U.S. history? In less than 4 years, how did he lose that support? Because he had obvious issues. They kept lying and lying. Trump Russia was a lie. They tried to say he didn't have cognitive issues. The Hunter laptop, almost certainly full of bribery and graft. That was a lie. Clinton Foundation scandals, a lie that they covered up, which was bribery and graft there. And so they just kept lying and lying and lying. Anyway, let's continue.
His remarks, Joe Biden has not been mentally capable for quite some time. Mr. Donlin is covering up, quite frankly, because they have a long relationship, and I respect that. If you have a long relationship with somebody, you try to do your best to protect them. But one thing is clear: Joe Biden was not running the country. He wasn't mentally capable of running the country. And so we need to continue to investigate Mr. Donlan's comments, and the fact that he was going to be paid $8 million by the president's campaign, President Biden, if he had won, demonstrates that he's trying to protect his client, his longtime associate, as opposed to telling the truth to the American people.
Is that normal in politics? You get a 4 or 5, a big bonus if you win. Is that common?
Yeah, it happens a lot. It happens more than people realize. And so, look, I think one of the things when you talk about the swamp, part of the swamp is all of the people who come up and they're around a candidate or an elected official. And so there's a lot of long-time relationships that exist in politics. And I think that's one of the reasons why you get a lot of internal infighting that happens all the time, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who are going to make money on political success.
Ain't that the truth?
So it wasn't just framing and setting up Trump. It was 50 intelligence officials that lied about Hunter's laptop. They said it was a Russian disinformation campaign. What a stupid, outlandish lie. How much of an imbecile do you have to be to believe that nonsense? Every single thing that is bad, that points to corruption within the Democratic Party, is a plot by Russia to inform you of how corrupt Democrats are. It's so absurd. But people believed it because they had to believe it. What's the alternative? Looking in the mirror and saying, okay, you lost to President Trump twice. You lost Congress. You're losing political power. Nobody trusts media or Hollywood. I mean, even like ticket sales in theaters are going down. The entire apparatus that Democrats had at their disposal for one whole decade, they have completely decimated. Hollywood has no influence anymore in American politics. Zero. The media has waning influence, hardly any. I mean, they have to speak in unison and yell at the top of their lungs, and still, most Americans don't care. 70% don't trust media because media has lied continuously. Trump was never a Kremlin operative. There was zero evidence. Trump never said both sides. Hunter's laptop was not a disinformation campaign. All of these things. And so what do they have now? What advantage do Democrats have? And the DOJ is going to indict everyone involved in setting up Trump. Then they're going to have to run in 2026. It's going to be like 50% odds. They're likely not going to even take back the House if things continue.
A grand jury investigation is now underway regarding the Trump-Russia hoax. The media enablers that peddled the lie for years, though, are circling the wagons.
This is extraordinarily stupid. It's extraordinarily stupid on so many counts. Barack Obama had nothing to do with this by anybody's account.
So this is what they do all the time. By anybody, meaning any liberal. No, it's nobody reasonable. So when Comey said no reasonable prosecutor, no liberal prosecutor, conservative prosecutors would prosecute like all, any like Hunter's laptop, the Clinton Foundation. It's pretty obvious. Trump doesn't have private servers. Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. don't have laptops with bribery and graft. Trump didn't preside over a uranium sale, giving up 20% of U.S. uranium. He doesn't have a foundation where hundreds of millions of dollars flow in from other countries for favors. He doesn't have all of these things. He didn't have servers with top secret intelligence transferred onto them. They had to make up 10 years of fake scandals. Oh, my God. Oh, the Presidential Records Act doesn't even have an enforcement mechanism. Trump did exactly what every other president did. And he has the power to declassify. Biden and Clinton did not. Anyway, let's continue.
We're all for transparency on any potential corruption, right? But this is something that has been combed over for a decade now.
I think they're trying to create the appearance of progress in this investigation without actually making any progress.
They all did their job, right? For the 4 years, 5 years. Meanwhile, President Trump, he's awaiting answers.
I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you this. They deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it.
Here with reaction is Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. Director Gabbard, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Laura.
There's a report tonight from the Federalist that the DOJ is actually asking you for more documents in its grand jury probe. Is that true? And what are they asking for now?
prostate exams are out.
That is true, Laura, and I just want to point out how important this is, that Attorney General Pam Bondi, through the Department of Justice, is taking this necessary first step toward accountability, which is essential for the American people to begin to have any kind of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. I met with the Department of Justice prosecutors today, and yes, they are committed to leaving no stone unturned as they conduct this grand jury investigation and find the truth. Obviously, we've already handed over the documents that we've declassified and released publicly over the last few weeks. They have more questions, and they're going to be really taking a deep dive into this again, looking everywhere to find the truth and conduct this very serious investigation.
You heard the media reaction, and a lot of these same people were just buying lock, stock, and barrel what was sold to them during the 2016 election. But they're essentially saying, this is all old news. This is such a stupid political move on their part. Into that, you say?
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true, and that
it can't be old news because there's declassified documents. The Durham probe annex, the ODNI reports are all declassified. They literally show John Brennan's handwritten notes stating he knew there was no evidence. Okay? They literally show that the U.S. intelligence community knew that even Russia was aware of Clinton's plan to set up Trump. They have all of the emails from people who conspired. These people were giddy and happy and gleeful. Hey, let's set up Trump. Let's go ahead and set him up. It's within the Durham probe. And we talked about it in the last live stream. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel, and go to H.A. Goodman's other channel as well. We're growing that one. That's in the description if you're new to the channel. I have been telling people for years and years Comey would get indicted. He got indicted. I said Trump would win re-election. He won re-election. Okay. These people are going, Clinton will eventually get indicted. I said that for the past 10 years. And it's about 10 years too late, but you have a lot of people who will be indicted for perjury. John Brennan, Clinton, James Clapper, because you have declassified documents. You have the Durham probe evidence. Okay, the Durham probe trials were waged under William Barr and an entire Justice Department and FBI that did not want to get to the truth. Okay, there was not one shred of evidence that pointed to Trump being colluding with Russia. If anything, there's a Politico article stating, and you know what? I should put the Politico article up every day on this channel. There's a Politico article stating they got who they wanted. The Clinton campaign literally wanted Trump. Then they changed their tune and said, oh, okay, they didn't. I'm a hologram from 2016. I'm telling you. Okay, you can read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Federalist, other publications at hagoodman.com. But I've been telling you for years, eventually President Trump's going to win and indict everyone who set him up. And there's something like, there's no Trump curse, but there kind of is. Every single person that went after Trump, every single person has had their careers upended. Every single person. But let's continue.
It doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people. They first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents a couple of weeks ago. They tried to ignore it when they realized that they weren't going to get away with this, that this story was going to continue breathing life. We continued releasing new documents. Then they decided, oh, we'll take this approach of say, oh, this is nothing. There's nothing really to see here. This is bizarre. This is a conspiracy. These are the things that they do over and over and over again. And the next step they will take when they feel that they are not succeeding in getting rid of this truth that we have uncovered for the American people, then they will go down the route of we must destroy and smear and attack the credibility of those who are delivering the truth to the American people. They've done this to President Trump. They've done this to me. They've done this to so many different people, once again, who are trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Now, Director, you said there was irrefutable evidence that Obama was the mastermind of this intelligence manipulation and the perpetuation of the Russia hoax. What is that irrefutable evidence for our viewers tonight?
Yeah, Laura, as you were playing those clips of these people.
Okay, so there's this idea among wonderful, highly educated, morally superior liberal Democrats or people who don't like Trump. There's an idea that Trump has deceived his voters. His voters got exactly what they want. I voted for President Trump to end wars. He's ending wars. I voted for President Trump to impose tariffs to bring manufacturing back. Eventually, that's what's taking place. He is enforcing immigration laws. I'm a little bit actually liberal on certain things, but you know what? The laws exist. People who voted for President Trump are getting exactly what they voted for. So when people say, Trump is lying to his voters, like, how on earth could he be lying to his voters? He won twice. He won after 4 years of Biden. We suffered through 4 years of Biden, 21% increase in prices. And Biden didn't even he was kicked out of the nomination after winning the most votes ever in 2020. How does that happen? So, and let's say like a person doesn't like Trump. That doesn't mean that Democrats can set him up and frame him with fake and phony intelligence. He was an innocent man. He was never working with Russia. It was literally fabricated. How can you set up an innocent human being even if you don't like them? That's not only immoral, it's illegal. That's why everyone's getting indicted now.
Like Morning Joe, seemingly befuddled, saying that by no account is any of this true. I would challenge them to see if they've actually read the documents, every single page of the documents that we've released over the last couple of weeks. If not, go to odni.gov, Gov. It's all right there for anyone to see. And those who go in and read this will see how President Obama directed that a National Security Council meeting be called to talk about Russia, that the report that came out of that meeting was filled with tasks that were delivered by James Clapper's assistant to John Brennan and to other elements of the intelligence community. John Brennan was the head of the CIA at the time, all saying per the president's direction, per the president's order. And very specifically, they were tasked to create an intelligence assessment that detailed how Moscow tried to influence the election, not if, but how. And this was the beginning of this manufactured intelligence assessment where they knowingly wrote things in this assessment that were false.
They can't hide behind stating it's bureaucracy. Oh, well, we had to do it this way because they set up and framed an innocent man. That is a fact. If Rudy Giuliani and President Trump purchased a dossier that said Harris or Biden or Hillary or President Obama were in a Moscow hotel room, the first thing that would happen would be Pulitzer Prize winning journalists would investigate who purchased the dossier. It was full of lies. How was it filtered through the U.S. government? If Trump treated Democrats in the manner that he was treated, they would never stand for it. And we are supposed to just simply allow a hoax to be filtered through the United States government. Why? Because Democrats have the authority to deceive the entire country for a whole decade? No, sorry. There was not one shred of evidence that pointed to Trump and Russia. Nothing. Everything was fabricated. And any innuendo, the Democrats have far greater ties. You could also further innuendo and conjecture. So anyway, let's continue.
And they knew they were false. They knew that they were basing it on discredited intelligence or documents like the Steele dossier that was politically motivated and that they knew was false. And this was how they came up with the Russia hoax that was then weaponized and used to try to delegitimize the president, President Trump, and to try to ultimately enact this years-long coup throughout his entire 4 years of his first administration.
And they further say that there's like this idea of saying that Obama is guilty of treason, that there's almost no chance that he's going to be charged or convicted of treason. So why even go there? And I'll pose that question to you.
The integrity of our democratic republic.
It's called the art of the deal. Okay, for the 1,500 people watching, it's called the art of the deal. President Trump and President Obama are friends, but they're part of a club. They're part of a club called the presidency, 47 presidents. They're closer to each other than Brennan and Comey and McCabe and Hillary Clinton is to President Obama or to President Obama. So, but he does face criminal liability. This is Trump telling President Obama, hey, you face criminal liability because every single person is going to blame Obama. Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Hillary Clinton, they're all going to say, this was President Obama's fault, not our fault, in court. That's the point, ladies and gentlemen. That's why President Obama is almost certainly, through a liaison or whatever, through a phone call, who knows, helping President Trump get all the receipts because it helps him circumvent criminal liability because setting up and framing an innocent man is illegal. And that's what they did to Trump. Number two, he takes full control of the Democratic Party. Even when Clinton is indicted and runs again for the presidency, he'll take full control because J.D. Vance will win. Okay, the modern day Democratic Party has zero leadership. Zero bench for the future in terms of upcoming leaders. They rely on political zeitgeist created by Jimmy Kimmel and media and Hollywood and the music industry, and it takes 3 weeks for morally superior liberals to key Teslas or go after ICE agents. So it's like, it's just, they crave political power. They don't really stand for things. Trump stands for enforcing immigration laws, economic tariffs to bring manufacturing back and create more equitable trade deals, and an anti-war foreign policy. If you don't think he truly stands by those issues that I just mentioned, that's irrelevant. Those are the three things that define Trump in addition to others. That's why his voters vote for him. That's why I voted for President Trump, because it's a moral imperative to have an anti-war foreign policy. What do Democrats stand for? Keying Teslas? Going after ICE agents? What do they stand for? I don't know. What do they want? Alleviating poverty? What Medicare for all? Green New Deal? What prices went up 21% under Biden. What do Democrats stand for? I don't know. You tell me.
Depends on the American people knowing the truth about what actually happened and seeking that accountability, bringing about that accountability. I don't know how else to characterize what happens when there is a sitting president of the United States, there is a director of the CIA, a director of national intelligence under President Obama, the head of the NSA, James Comey is the head of the FBI, all coming together, and this is documented in what we released, all coming together to create this lie with the intent of delegitimizing the duly elected president of the United States because the person they wanted to win actually lost. And the American people made their own choice in spite of everything that happened in that 2016 election, and they chose Donald Trump. This was not a one-off thing. This wasn't just, oh, well, they fudged the lines a little bit. They created a lie and propagated that lie in order to try to undermine the person that the American people chose to be our president and commander-in-chief.
To your point that you made earlier, that when they're losing on the facts, they demonize the messenger. And in this case, you're the messenger. And I think this is a big reason your opposition to the forever war syndrome. That's one reason. But then this was another reason they clearly did not want you in your position. And to that point, Mark Warner, of course, Democrat senator from Virginia, wrote on X today, Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to our national security and should be fired. He's taking his orders pretty well, don't you think?
So when the modern day Democratic Party says the Republic, the Constitution, democracy, national security, these are all euphemisms or synonyms for the Democratic Party. When they say Trump is a menace to democracy, they really mean is Trump is a menace to the Democratic Party. They don't even have functioning primaries. Why? How can you have a political party without a primary? How could you get the best politician within your political party to win if you just pick and choose within a primary? You don't even have an actual primary. Ask Bernie Sanders. Ask Biden. I mean, they're all in on it. Bernie Sanders, Biden, they don't even care. It's a machine. You think Trump would be okay if he was cheated in the Republican Party? Never. Never.
Director?
There's tacos.
He has and continues to be a reliable soldier. And you're right there, Laura, to make that comparison, because these very same tactics they are using now are the same tactics that the warmongers of Washington have consistently used whenever anyone challenges them to say, hey, this does not serve the best interests of the American people. It does not make us more safe, secure, and free. So why are you doing this? Exposing these people for who they are. And once again, who is the deep state? What does it consist of? We're seeing this revealed in real time here. And it's important for the American people to pay attention and realize, like, hey, with the mainstream propaganda media, we got to pay attention. We got to use our common sense and recognize we should accept nothing they say at face value.
And how important is it to root out any remaining problems in these agencies, Director? Because we need our people to believe in the FBI, to believe in the CIA, to or get rid of them altogether. I mean, I hate to say that, or just completely defund a lot of these intelligence agencies. If we can't trust them, if they're going to subvert democracy and subvert our presidency, why are we funding them?
Well, this is, and I'll go back to that Mark Warner tweet that you put out saying that I'm a threat to national security. Why? Because I'm actually exposing the truth. As Director of National Intelligence, I'm doing the work to go and root out those deep state bad actors within the intelligence community, because our country's national security depends on it. The rule of law requires it. The integrity of our democratic republic requires that, rooting out the truth, telling the truth to the American people, and bringing about that accountability. So yes, it is essential across the board, not only to root out the individual bad actors, but to enact the kind of institutional reform to make it so that these kinds of things cannot be allowed to happen again.
If they can't set up and frame Trump, if they can't accuse Trump of things he didn't do, if they don't have a dossier on J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio, they can't win nationally. They can't win, because what are they going to say? We're going to implement a Green New Deal to raise energy prices to exponentially. What are they going to run on nationally? What do Democrats run on nationally? If they don't like ICE, they can easily amend or do away with existing immigration laws. Notice they're not talking about that. Why aren't they talking about reforming existing immigration or deportation laws? Because they have zero intention of doing so. That's the issue. They just want to create as much emotion as possible. The emotion fuels the modern day Democratic Party. Specific policies fuel the Trump Republican, the modern day Republican Party. What policies did Harris run on? What specific button? They can't name any. Medicare for all, Green New Deal. No, she wouldn't touch those at all. Anyway, let's continue.
Bolton is expected to surrender today after being indicted on 18 charges related to mishandling of classified documents. Bolton responded to the indictment saying, quote, "I have devoted my life to America's foreign policy and national security. I would never compromise those goals. I tried to."
The country and the world would be better off had he not devoted his life to national security.
Do that during my tenure in the first Trump administration, but resigned when it became impossible to do so. These charges are not just about his focus on me or my diaries, but his intensive effort to intimidate his.
Who has diaries when their entire life is about national security secrets? What does that even mean? Why would you have a diary if you're privy to national security classified data?
Opponents. Fox News contributor and George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley joins us now. Professor, thanks so much for joining the program. I just want to go into some of the documents that he had. So there was some info on future attacks, foreign intel sharing, adversary covert action, sensitive human intel sources, and covert operation in assessments. Just face value. You know, you can talk about political targeting and all of that, but that is damning evidence from the Bureau.
It's very damning, and we still have to learn about the timeline of when this information was transmitted. But certainly this information is classified at the highest levels because this is information that get people killed.
Fuzzy, thank you. That's a terrible moment during Jonathan Turley's discussion to stop and thank you. But Fuzzy, thank you so very much. Greatly appreciated. One of the better names in the channel's history. Thank you.
It's very damning, and we still have to learn about the timeline of when this information was transmitted. But certainly this information is classified at the highest levels because this is information that get people killed. I mean, this is the type of information that, if it gets out, can reveal sources and methods that represent really threatening consequences for national security. And keep in mind that in an earlier case, a federal judge said that he could not force Bolton to bring back and destroy all of the books that he had published with this company. But he said, you did undermine national security. This book does that. And so that's sort of the context here. The other thing about this, Lawrence, is that this was a long-standing series of objections. He was investigated during the Biden administration before that was scuttled. But he had basically defied a lot of the objections from the intelligence community. And now this indictment says that he was sending this information to what appears to be his wife and daughter, who, of course, have no clearances, and that it might have even been hacked by the Iranian government.
All of their personal emails, John Brennan, James Clapper, Bolton, were hacked. Okay, that's according to The Guardian, NBC News, and others. The template for the Bolton indictment could be used against Comey, definitely against John Brennan, Clapper, Hillary Clinton, possibly. Clinton will be indicted for a number of things. Could be for that also. So anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Hit subscribe if you're new. Every single thing that I have been saying the past 10 years is taking place. Took a decade. If you've been with me for the decade or 5 years or 3 years or just recently, thank you. God bless you. And thanks for being on this journey. If you want to read my writing, go to hagoodman.com. See you tomorrow, everybody. We're doing 2 live streams a day. And go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. It's in the description. Hit subscribe there. And we'll be doing a lot of videos, live streams this week. This will be huge, I think, for the next year. I mean, the next year before midterms that Democrats will likely lose, you'll see probably 20